Hey guys, I'm Ethan Moore from Stockholm Supply. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to replace the motors on your Camvac. Now the reasons to do this, the Camvac does come with a 5-year warranty, and the motors are covered under that warranty as long as you use them within the specifications. So every 2 hours these motors need about a 15-minute break to cool down. Now, there are times where you can not follow the directions and the motors can get burnt out. Like we've had a customer with a CNC, he had it running for about 14 hours a day and the motor did eventually burn out on him. But we can get replacement motors for them quite easily and they're not too difficult to replace, and that's what I'm going to show you here today. So the first thing you can probably see in the camera, each motor is held on with 4 bolts. So we got Phillips pan screw heads on the top, and then we got a nylock nut on the bottom. First thing we'll do is we're just going to remove all 4 of those bolts. Okay, so once we have all those bolts removed, we're actually going to flip this over. We'll pop these out first. We're going to flip the whole canister over and we'll take a look inside those motors here. Okay, so we'll flip it over with the motors and the lid here. Just try to keep the motors in place when you're flipping it. And now, and I guess what I should have done maybe earlier, you can remove these filter cages if you want here. Makes them a little easier to take off and maneuver. Okay, so if we look inside, we'll just tip these over. You can see some spade connectors. So that's what we're going to get into next. Okay, so the next thing that I like to do is take a real good hard look on what we got here. And what I really is probably advisable too is take a quick picture of what we have on both sides so that when we go to put the replacement motors on, we put it together exactly the same way. Now there are some schematics available from Record Power, but if you take a picture of yourself too, it's sometimes a little bit easier to see exactly where things go. So we got some ground wires connected directly to the motor. We got some spade connectors. These 2 black wires on each side are the power wires to the motor. And then these blue and brown wires are the power that comes from the wall. And then we got the ground kind of interconnected throughout the Camvac. So the first thing that we'll do, you'll also notice here, there's a bunch of zip ties kind of keeping the wires nice and tidy. So we're going to cut those zip ties, kind of open things up. We got a couple good pictures taken now, and we can take these motors off. Now the other thing I should mention, in between the 2 motors, we have a wire that's connected with through a couple of grommets here. That wire will need to be disconnected and brought through the side of the motor. You'll have to take that rubber grommet out so the spade connectors will fit through the hole. But we'll get there eventually. So we'll start with the zip ties. Okay, so now that we got the zip ties taken care of, what I'm going to do is remove the ground wire from each of the motors here. So we'll take that screw and we'll put it right back in that hole. Okay, so again, before you take anything apart, take a couple good pictures. Oh, and there's one more ground wire here that I'll need to remove as well. So just removing this ground here. Okay, so any wires you take off, make sure you don't lose, but that's good to come off. So now we're at the point where we can start removing the spade connectors. they will pretty well all need to come off because they're all kind of connected, because this wire is going to have to come out as well. Now the other thing, there's a couple of zip ties here I missed cutting. I'll cut those in a few minutes. So, but yeah, let's remove some spade connectors and see if we can get this thing taken apart. Okay, so that's the motor there. So other than the wire running through it, that motor is totally loose. So I'm going to leave these ones doubled up there. Just like that. So this side, again, other than, well, actually I will have to disconnect those two. This one will come off there. Okay. Now we can do the other side. So now let me cut those zip ties off and we'll get that wire out of there. Okay, so now we just got to get this wire that connects the two motors together out. So that'll slide out. Now slide it till you get to the loose wires, and then you should be able to collapse that grommet there and it'll pull out. And then once you get the grommet, your spade connectors will kind of one at a time or two at a time fit through that little hole. So there's one motor, and we'll do the same over here. So let me slide that up. And there's your wire. Okay, so now we have two motors that are totally independent of the Camvac. The next thing that we would do is do everything we just did, but in reverse. So I was just editing that video and I realized the second half of it didn't save properly where I reassembled things, but that's okay, because essentially everything I showed you in that video, you're just going to do in reverse. Couple things I did want to note. With these motors, you'll notice they have a flat spot on them right here. When you're putting these motors on, that flat spot is supposed to go towards the other motor, so there's room for the seals. And the other thing to note, if you get a replacement motor, it may not have a hole in there for the cord to connect the two, because in the UK, some of these Camvacs are sold as single motors, so they don't need that hole. Now, if there's not a hole, you can very easily, this is just a plastic shroud, you can very easily drill a hole to fit in there that's the same diameter as the grommet there. So yeah, other than that, pretty straightforward. Just follow what I just did with disassembly and do it in reverse to reassemble the motors there. And if anybody else has any questions, you can email me at info@stockhamsupply.com or just comment on the video. Thanks for watching.